Outside of Time Episode 9. In the previous episode, Xu Qing experienced a rare moment of peace as he stayed in a warm and simple house. Even dreaming of a world where his family was alive and life was worry-free. Awaking to the first signs of spring, he was drawn by an insatiable thirst for knowledge. Quietly, he listened outside Grandmaster Bai's tent, absorbing every detail about herbs and medicine from the lesson inside. Learning about the elusive and powerful Heaven Fate flower, Xu Qing carefully recorded every detail before preparing for his journey. Determined and cautious, he ventured once again into the Forbidden Zone, avoiding fog and mutated beasts, retracing previous paths, and planning his next steps to find the Heaven Fate flower and help the little girl with a rare stone. At the end of the previous episode, Xu Qing settled for the night in a hidden spot, his eyes fixed on the distant Seven-Leaf Grass Canyon and the temples beyond. Ready to continue his search. What will happen next? Stay tuned. And the story continues. Xu Qing wasn't unfamiliar with the dark night of the Forbidden Zone. Regardless of whether it was the ruins of the city or this jungle. He lived in the former for over 10 days and he has also experienced several nights in the latter. Xu Qing crouched within the protective hollow of a giant tree, his body partially hidden in the deep crevice. The Forbidden Zone stretched endlessly around him, a chaotic mix of dense jungle and remnants of a ruined city. A place where danger lurked silently at every step. He had learned to survive in such a hostile environment, having spent over 10 days within the broken ruins and several nights navigating the jungle's hidden perils. Tonight, he was not only surviving but cultivating, quietly drawing in the spirit energy that permeated the area. The spirit energy here was unlike any ordinary energy. It was infused with dense anomalous substances that could destabilize the untrained mind or body. Yet Xu Qing had mastered the mountains and seas art, and as the energy entered his body, he could separate its essence. The pure energy nourished his body, strengthening every muscle, tendon, and bone, while the anomalous part fused seamlessly into his shadow, becoming both a companion and a tool of his cultivation. He had grown accustomed to these changes, understanding instinctively that the dangerous environment of the Forbidden Zone acted as a whetstone, sharpening his abilities and reflexes. It feels like sharpening a knife, Xu Qing murmured quietly to himself, recalling the words of a blacksmith in the slums, who had once said that a fine blade needed an equally fine whetstone to reveal its true edge. In the heart of the Forbidden Zone, the environment itself was the whetstone, tempering his body, mind, and spirit with relentless pressure and danger. Hours passed as he remained in meditation, cultivating silently. The night around him was alive with the distant roars of mutated beasts, their cries echoing like the low chants of gods and demons through the thick jungle. A cold, penetrating intent accompanied the lifeforms roaming outside, seeping through the cracks of the tree and brushing against Xu Qing's skin. The chill reminded him of his time in the ruined city, and a faint loneliness crept into his chest. Yet he was no stranger to solitude. It had become a companion over the many nights of survival and cultivation. Slowly, he shut his eyes again, letting the energy flow, his breathing steady and even. Just as he began to relax, a new sound interrupted the usual chaos of the night. Footsteps. They were irregular at first, scattered, as though a group of people was moving in formation. Xu Qing's eyes narrowed instinctively, his body tensing as he focused on the pitch black outside. His heart sank slightly, noticing an immediate and unnatural silence in the jungle. The mutated beasts, which had been howling and growling only moments before, suddenly fell quiet. A strange, ominous stillness took their place. He compared the sound to a memory of another night, when he had encountered a strange singing presence in the ruins. But this was different. There was no song, no melody carried through the darkness, only the sharp rhythm of deliberate footsteps. Gradually approaching, Xu Qing forced himself to remain calm, holding his breath and closing his eyes tightly. He reminded himself of his own rule: do not look, do not touch, do not provoke. The footsteps grew closer, more urgent, circling around the tree as though hundreds of people, or something resembling them, were moving in a careful formation. Along with the sound, waves of intense cold radiated outward, a chill so sharp it could penetrate flesh and bone. Xu Qing recognized this cold. It reminded him of the anomalous entities he had encountered in the ruins. Yet this cold, while oppressive, was not enough to freeze him in place. It made him uneasy, but he was still in control. Clutching the iron stick tightly, he forced himself to remain still, eyes shut, heart racing, relying on his instincts and training to survive the encirclement. Time passed slowly. The night seemed endless, a tense stretch where every sound became magnified in the darkness. Yet eventually, the first rays of sunlight broke through the horizon, piercing the canopy above the jungle. With the morning came a reprieve. The footsteps receded, leaving an eerie silence in their wake. Xu Qing did not immediately open his eyes. He waited patiently, allowing the danger to fully pass. When he finally did, he was shocked to find the entrance to his tree hollow sealed in a thick layer of ice, trapping him inside overnight. Using his strength, Xu Qing pressed his left hand against the icy barrier and pushed violently. Cracks formed and expanded rapidly, and with a final burst of force, the ice shattered, tumbling to the ground. He emerged cautiously, observing his surroundings. The wolf corpses that had marked his previous night's vigil had vanished. In their place were numerous human footprints, scattered across the forest floor. Xu Qing's breath caught as he counted them in his mind. Hundreds, perhaps more, and no shoes had been worn, bare human feet. He had never imagined that so many could enter the Forbidden Zone simultaneously. The scale of the intrusion only deepened the mystery and danger of this place. Without hesitation, Xu Qing took advantage of the relative safety that dawn offered. He moved swiftly, navigating the jungle with heightened awareness, determined to continue his exploration. Hours passed as he tracked his path, and finally he reached the farthest point he had explored before, a small canyon where the Thunder Team had once harvested the rare seven-leaf grass. The canyon was untouched, a rare sanctuary of calm amid the surrounding wilderness. Sunlight filtered down from the tops of towering vine-covered trees, illuminating the ground in warm, golden patterns. The air was thick with the fragrance of blooming flowers, isolating the canyon from the dangers lurking just beyond its boundaries. Xu Qing paused, taking a deep breath of relief, feeling the tension of the night slowly ebb from his body. Then his gaze shifted to the other end of the canyon, where a cluster of ancient temples rose, partially hidden by dense foliage. Their stone walls and intricate carvings hinted at forgotten histories and untold secrets. Drawing Xu Qing forward with quiet urgency, he hesitated only briefly, feeling the weight of the Forbidden Zone's mysteries pressing against him. Then he retracted his gaze, rested momentarily, and prepared himself for the next stage of his journey. After staring for a moment, Xu Qing retracted his gaze and rested for a while. His body then sped off, heading straight for the cluster of temples. The jungle outside the canyon was even lusher and there was less sunlight there. It was unknown if it was because this group of ancient temples still emitted the glory and authority of their era, but there were very few dangers when he got close after exiting the canyon. Xu Qing stepped carefully from the safety of the canyon into the dense jungle that led toward the cluster of ancient temples. Surprisingly, the jungle here felt much calmer than the perimeters he had passed before. The oppressive, malevolent aura that usually hung over the Forbidden Zone seemed diluted, almost absent. Even the trees, which had previously been twisted and ominous, now stood in gentle, unthreatening forms. He noticed the occasional patches of seven-leaf grass, rich and vibrant, still untouched, and picked a few to examine, carefully storing them in his pouch. Although the surroundings seemed less dangerous, Xu Qing did not allow himself to relax. His vigilance remained sharp, every muscle and sense alert to sudden threats. Hours passed as he advanced cautiously. By the time dusk began to fall, he finally emerged from the jungle and came face to face with the temple complex. The sight was staggering. The sunlight filtered through the sparse trees, bathing the area in a soft glow that made Xu Qing momentarily dazed. Massive domed buildings, hundreds of feet tall, lay before him, though time had eroded them, leaving collapsed roofs, moss-covered walls, and scattered rocks. The scale of the structures was still awe-inspiring. He walked among the broken bricks, each one enormous, and felt as though he had stepped into a country of giants. Everywhere he looked, remnants of the past whispered their stories. Broken walls bore witness to ages long gone, and the ruins carried the weight of history in their silence. A colossal statue drew his attention next. Its lower half had crumbled into countless pieces, irreparable in form, yet its head remained intact, towering over 300 feet. Xu Qing imagined its original height, perhaps over 2,000 feet, and felt the insignificance of his own presence in comparison. As a gust of wind swept through the temple complex, it carried a desolate, flute-like sound. It seemed to isolate time itself, as if the glory of the temple's past lingered solely for those who came later to witness it. Xu Qing remained silent, staring at the statue, contemplating the cycles of history. He thought of the ruined city outside the slums and wondered whether future travelers would feel as he did. Approaching these ancient sites cautiously, reverent in the face of civilization's remnants. After a long pause, he turned away and began searching the temple complex for the special stone Captain Lei had mentioned. According to reports, the stone emitted a rainbow-colored glow and appeared irregularly, almost as if it were a living element of the temple itself. Xu Qing moved carefully from room to room, scanning walls, floors, and hidden crevices, but found nothing. Slightly disappointed, he leapt to the top of a temple for a better view. His movements fluid and precise. From that vantage, he could see the outer perimeter of the Forbidden Zone, the edge of the jungle, and the endless expanse of the Forbidden Zone stretching into the distance. Calculating the time, Xu Qing realized it was the 4th day since Boneblade had arranged the insurance transaction. He also noted that there was no fog, neither yesterday nor today, so there was no immediate need to search for anyone else. Turning his gaze toward the inner depths of the Forbidden Zone, he resolved to explore a small section before returning to the temple to rest for the night. With that plan, he dropped down and advanced into the denser jungle, where the danger was palpably greater. The deeper he ventured, the more intense his vigilance became. Within an hour, he returned to the temple boundary, his expression tense, a trace of fear in his eyes. Yet his leather pouch had expanded, filled with the valuable, aged 7-leaf grass he had discovered. This grass, untouched for years, was rare and immensely potent, but collecting it was no easy task. The density of the anomalous substances had doubled, and without his shadow to absorb the dangerous energy, moving even a single step would have been nearly impossible. As he worked, he spotted the strange jellyfish-like creatures he had seen previously in the Forbidden Zone. Over 10 of them hung from the trees, much smaller than before, but their cold aura remained apparent. He navigated carefully around them, avoiding contact, aware of the risk they posed. Moving forward, he felt countless unseen gazes upon him, intangible but palpably greedy, as if the jungle itself were watching and testing him. The sensation of sharp needles pricking his back made him realize the sheer danger hidden in the depths. And he wisely retreated to the safety of the temple's edge. Here, the oppressive malice faded, as if the temple itself formed a protective barrier against the dark forces beyond. Taking advantage of the remaining daylight, Xu Qing entered one of the barely intact temples. Inside, he found a stone crevice where he could rest safely for the night. The interior was vast, echoing with the weight of centuries. Ancient statues of humans and figures wielding weapons, now blurred by time, adorned the walls. Not a single sign of recent mutated beast activity was present, save for the minimal traces that suggested they rarely entered this sanctuary. For Xu Qing, this was an indicator of relative safety, a rare reprieve in the otherwise perilous Forbidden Zone. Night fell, bringing with it the familiar chorus of distant roars from mutated beasts. Xu Qing sat quietly, cultivating, his senses heightened for any disturbance. And then, it came again, the chaotic sound of footsteps, eerily similar to the previous night, this time outside the temple walls. His heart tightened. He did not immediately look but instead relied on his instincts, bracing for whatever might approach. Unlike the night before, the footsteps did not dissipate gradually, they multiplied, growing louder, accompanied by a pervasive cold that penetrated the air around him. Waves of unease washed over Xu Qing as he gripped his iron stick, mentally mapping the temple's layout in preparation for defense. Then, without warning, the footsteps ceased. The silence was not comforting. On the contrary, it felt like the calm before a storm. Xu Qing could sense the hesitation of whatever had gathered outside, as if countless strange entities were deliberating on whether to enter. And then, they moved. The footsteps approached and crossed the temple threshold, striking the stone floors with weighty precision. A heavy, almost crushing sound, like a boulder falling into his mind, made Xu Qing's heart sink. At that exact moment, golden light radiated from the temple walls, illuminating the space with an intense, holy brilliance. Murmurs of sacred sound echoed through the air, surrounding him, and the darkness behind his eyelids gave way to a world of piercing illumination. Under this golden light, Xu Qing felt a piercing pain in his eyes. This was the first time he opened his eyes after encountering such a strange situation. He saw a golden light. It came from all the blurry human figures on the inner walls of the temple. Xu Qing's eyes widened in astonishment. Every carved figure on the temple walls, previously blurred and indistinct, now radiated a small, flickering light. The illumination spread, converging into a brilliance that filled the entire temple with an ethereal golden glow. Yet, among all the luminous figures, the largest and most commanding source of light was the main statue in the center of the temple, the stone figure holding the legendary stone saber. Its radiance far surpassed anything else, commanding attention with a presence that felt almost divine. Xu Qing's mind trembled under the weight of the sight. As his gaze adjusted to the brilliance, he noticed a black foggy figure standing at the entrance of the temple. Its form was indistinct, a twisted silhouette against the golden light, and Xu Qing could only make out vague human-like features, warped and distorted. Behind him, outside the temple, hundreds of similar black fog figures had gathered. Some resembled humans, others appeared more beast-like, their forms dripping with a chilling darkness that seemed to pulse in the night. The black fog emitted an astonishingly cold aura, and the chill intensified as all the figures combined their presence. It was as if the darkness itself had seeped into the temple. Testing the limits of the holy light, Xu Qing watched, heart-pounding, as the lone black shadow inside the temple raised its head. Disturbed by the golden radiance, it let out a roar, a sound that seemed to shake the very air and reverberate within one's soul. Then, as if touching some forbidden law, it took a step forward. In that instant, Xu Qing's eyes nearly burst with disbelief. The saber-wielding stone statue, the one that had been motionless for centuries, suddenly moved. With majestic authority, it walked down from its pedestal. Each step was filled with a weight that felt both physical and spiritual, as though the god of the temple had descended into the mortal realm. Xu Qing could feel the ground tremble beneath the statue's stride, the air itself trembling with its aura. The statue raised the stone saber high, then struck downward in a single, unadorned motion. The strike was simple yet profound. Imbued with the charm of the great Tao, it resonated not in sound, but in essence, shaking the black shadow with a mournful vibration that pierced the soul. The dark fog evaporated instantly, revealing a rotting old man in tattered clothes. Xu Qing saw the empty sockets of the figure's eyes, and in the next moment, the body collapsed entirely, dissolving into mist. The effect did not stop there. One by one, the black fog outside the temple wavered under the golden light. Slowly, the forms became clear. Among the distorted silhouettes, Xu Qing recognized the Blood-Shadow team captain. His once emaciated face was emotionless, his body enshrouded in darkness. Yet as the golden light spread, the darkness peeled away, purifying the captain's form until he dissipated entirely, freed from whatever force had bound him. Outside, the remaining black fog figures, unable to withstand the radiance, retreated into the shadows of the night. Gradually, the golden light in the temple dimmed, and the imposing statue returned to its pedestal. As its illumination faded, the stone figure assumed its original stillness, yet it retained an aura of vigilance, standing as though eternally guarding the temple gate. Xu Qing, hidden in a rock crevice, panted heavily, disbelief etched across his features. He had witnessed something impossible. The Blood-Shadow team captain, who had seemingly perished in the singing fog, had survived, saved by this miraculous phenomenon. The temple, ordinary by appearance in daylight, had transformed at night into a sacred space where light overcame darkness, where a stone statue could descend with godlike authority. The saber strike had left a profound mark on Xu Qing's soul. Its power and dignity engraved in his memory. He struggled to comprehend the existence before him. Was the statue alive, or was it a relic of an ancient power beyond mortal understanding? The age of the temple and its past glory remained a mystery. Yet its divine authority was undeniable. Xu Qing remained silent, bowing deeply to the statue and the illuminated figures around it. From his pouch, he took a candle, placing it reverently in front of the stone saber and bowing again, honoring the mysterious force that had manifested before him. Once he had paid his respects, he turned and exited the temple. But even as he walked away, he frequently glanced back, as though wanting to imprint the memory into his very being. The image of the strike replayed in his mind with startling clarity. Every time he raised his right hand, he instinctively mimicked the movement, feeling the profound essence of the saber strike flow through him. Each imitation allowed him to internalize the power, transforming it into his own understanding. If the mountains and seas art was once guided by the visualization of the Shao diagram, Xu Qing now replaced it with the image of the saber strike, its rhythm and weight shaping his cultivation. Unknowingly, during this process, he broke through a significant barrier. His mountains and seas art advanced to the 4th level. The breakthrough enhanced not only his strength and speed several times over, but also sharpened his mind. When he lifted and lowered his right hand, he could faintly sense the weight and precision of the strike, as if drawing power from the godlike statue itself. Xu Qing's astonishment grew as he realized the depth of this advancement. 2 days passed gradually. Perhaps it was due to his careful movements around the temple's periphery. Or perhaps the aura of the sacred temple itself intimidated any potential dangers. Whatever the reason, Xu Qing did not encounter the strange footsteps that had plagued him in the previous nights. Gradually, 2 days passed. Maybe it was because he was in the periphery, or maybe it was because of the intimidation from the temple. He didn't encounter any strange footsteps on the way back. As for the mutated beasts, Xu Qing encountered some of them. However, the increase in his cultivation base allowed his ability to protect his life to increase. It could be considered successful if he was careful. Xu Qing moved cautiously through the dense jungle, each step measured and deliberate. The mutated beasts he encountered prowled the shadows, their eyes glinting with hunger, their movements unpredictable. Yet, Xu Qing's enhanced cultivation allowed him to navigate their presence without panic. He knew that as long as he remained alert and precise, he could avoid fatal danger. This newfound strength gave him a sense of confidence, even amidst the perils of the Forbidden Zone. Though he hadn't discovered the legendary Heaven Fate Flower or the elusive Scar-repelling stone, his efforts were far from wasted. He had collected a considerable amount of 7-leaf grass, the kind valued highly in the spirit market. Xu Qing calculated in his mind that if he returned with these herbs, he could trade them for a significant sum of spirit coins, enough to support his cultivation and basic needs for a long time. As dusk approached, Xu Qing finally reached the edge of the jungle and glimpsed the world outside. He was about to step out when something caught his attention, a single blade of grass lying quietly on the ground. At first glance, it resembled the legendary Heaven Fate Flower. Xu Qing knelt down, examining it carefully. Even with his limited botanical knowledge, he quickly realized it was not the rare flower he sought. Yet, something about it intrigued him, a subtle energy that made him hesitate. For a moment, he felt a twinge of guilt as he glanced around, questioning whether he should take it. Despite the uncertainty, he eventually plucked the blade of grass and tucked it carefully into his leather pouch. He decided it was worth keeping. With renewed energy, Xu Qing sprinted out of the jungle, the wind brushing against his face as he made his way back to the campsite. Night had not yet fallen when he arrived, and the campsite was still lively. The tents, adorned with feathers and colored cloth, shimmered faintly in the moonlight. The air was filled with bursts of laughter, conversation, and the occasional sound of panting from travelers moving about. Xu Qing ignored the clamor and focused on returning to his residence. As he pushed open the courtyard gate, he was greeted by Captain Lei, who had noticed his return. Relief washed over Captain Lei's face as he saw Xu Qing unharmed. Though slightly exhausted and disheveled, "What took you so long?" he asked. his voice tinged with concern. "I went to the temple," Xu Qing replied simply. Moonlight and the soft glow from the house illuminated the fatigue and red-rimmed eyes in Captain Lei's expression. It was clear that the man had not had much rest recently. Xu Qing felt a warmth in his heart, understanding why Captain Lei had been worried. Captain Lei led Xu Qing to the kitchen. Despite the late hour, the dishes on the table were still warm, as though prepared in anticipation of his return. Xu Qing silently recognized the care and effort behind this gesture. He set out the bowls and chopsticks, noting the 3 neatly aligned sets, and began eating. The food was fragrant and comforting, carrying a taste of care that nourished both body and spirit. Captain Lei ate sparingly, mostly sipping from his wine while watching Xu Qing with a gentle smile. "Eat more, you're still growing. If you don't eat, you might not become tall in the future," he teased lightly. Xu Qing lowered his head, cheeks warming slightly, and obediently ate more. After finishing, he shared the events of his time in the temple, the golden light, the stone statue, and the miraculous saber strike that had purified the black fog figures. Captain Lei, initially drinking wine casually, grew engrossed in Xu Qing's account. He exhaled deeply and muttered, recalling stories he had heard long ago of similar phenomena that had eventually turned into legend. A faint sadness lingered in his eyes as he reminisced about the past. And Xu Qing, sensing the emotion, fell silent, unsure if he had said too much. After a moment, Captain Lei smiled and reassured him. "You're too sensitive. I'm not as fragile as you think." The conversation lightened as Captain Lei shared recent events from the campsite, turning the moment into one of quiet companionship. They spoke like family, 2 souls finding comfort in each other's presence amid the vast dangers and uncertainties of the Forbidden Zone. Late into the night, Captain Lei finally retired to his room after finishing his wine, and Xu Qing tidied the table before returning to his own quarters. Upon entering, Xu Qing noticed the bedding had been freshly prepared. It had been rolled out neatly, carrying a faint sun-dried scent, showing the same thoughtful care Captain Lei had shown throughout the evening. Xu Qing considered sitting on the bed but hesitated when he saw the dirt on his clothes and hands. Instead, he rolled up the blanket, sat on the bed frame, closed his eyes, and began cultivating, letting the quiet night soothe his mind and body. Morning came, and Xu Qing opened his eyes. He washed his hands thoroughly, enduring the minor discomfort for the sake of cleanliness, and then headed toward the tent where Grandmaster Bai was teaching. He timed his arrival carefully, ensuring he would not be too early or too late, so he could hear the lesson from the very beginning. As Xu Qing reached the tent, he caught the end of an assessment. A young girl's voice explained the properties of green lotus flower dew, a refined aromatic water derived from lotus buds with medicinal properties for the lungs and blood-related ailments. Xu Qing listened intently, absorbing every word, lost in thought as the lesson continued for more than 2 hours. When the tent finally opened, Grandmaster Bai appeared, his gaze calm yet dignified. Xu Qing approached, slightly nervous, and presented the blade of grass he had collected. "Grandmaster Bai, I wanted to ask if this is a heaven fate flower," he said softly. Grandmaster Bai's eyes widened in subtle surprise as he examined the grass. After a long moment, he shook his head. "This one isn't," he replied quietly. Xu Qing bowed deeply, relief and a hint of trepidation mingling in his chest, and left the tent. He glanced back once, noticing Grandmaster Bai standing there, watching him, and nodded in acknowledgement. Xu Qing returned the bow and continued on his way. Inside the tent, Grandmaster Bai's presence had drawn the attention of a small audience, a guard, a young man and woman, who had remained motionless, almost frozen in place. 2 visitors, an old man in purple robes and a gray-robed servant, had arrived unnoticed. The purple-robed man laughed, addressing Grandmaster Bai about Xu Qing's actions and the potential he saw in the youth. Grandmaster Bai, with a sharp tongue yet hidden warmth, explained his thoughts, debating the youth's promise and his own role in nurturing talent. The purple-robed man encouraged him to teach Xu Qing, believing the boy had the potential to combine cultivation and scholarship within the 7 blood eyes. After a brief discussion, the purple-robed man departed with his servant, leaving the tent in motion and the audience returning to their normal state. The guard was still standing guard. The youth was still vexed and the girl was still smug. Only Grandmaster Bai lifted his head and looked in the direction Xu Qing had left earlier. His gaze pensive. At that moment, Xu Qing only heaved a long sigh of relief when he returned to his residence. He felt that it wasn't too good for him to do that, but his thirst for knowledge left him with no other choice. Xu Qing's steps slowed as he entered his modest dwelling, the weight of both exhaustion and satisfaction pressing on him. He knew that his small act of borrowing knowledge, listening quietly from outside Grandmaster Bai's tent, was not entirely proper. Yet, his insatiable curiosity and hunger for learning had driven him forward, leaving him with little alternative. Deep down, he also sensed that his little trick had likely been noticed by the wise Grandmaster Bai. But he could only hope that it would be forgiven in time. As he exhaled, a thought struck him, and he murmured softly, almost to himself, "I have to repay you in the future." He did not know exactly how he could return the favor, but he committed the intention firmly to his heart, believing that one day the opportunity would arise. To ensure he would not forget, Xu Qing took out a bamboo slip from his leather pouch and, using a small iron stick, carefully carved the words, "Grandmaster Bai," onto it. The bamboo slip already held several other names: Captain Lei, who had been a steadfast companion and guide, and 3 others who had helped him survive in the slums. Though their contributions were small, Xu Qing valued each one, committing them to memory with gratitude. Satisfied with this, he took another bamboo slip and began to record the details of the lesson he had just absorbed. Every key point, every method, he meticulously noted, ensuring nothing would escape his memory. He even revisited the bamboo slips from previous lessons, silently reviewing and memorizing every bit of knowledge until he felt a deep sense of accomplishment. "There are already 27 types of herbs that I understand," he said to himself, a rare smile breaking across his tired face. The following morning, Xu Qing rose early, invigorated by a sense of purpose. He sold some of the 7-leaf grass he had collected in the Forbidden Zone and used the proceeds to purchase herbs similar in appearance to the elusive Heaven Fate flower. With it carefully stored in his pouch, he made his way back to Grandmaster Bai's tent, his steps confident and familiar. As usual, he took his place outside the tent, silently observing and listening to the lesson inside. He learned more with each passing day, carefully noting not just the properties of individual herbs but also their methods of preparation, combination, and the subtle interactions that could alter their effects. When the lesson ended, he nervously stepped forward and presented the herb he had obtained, asking for Grandmaster Bai's guidance. Grandmaster Bai examined the herb thoughtfully, shaking his head slightly as he shared insights about it. Xu Qing absorbed every detail, understanding not just the herb itself but its broader applications. After bowing in gratitude, he left the tent, his eyes catching the faint nod of acknowledgement from Grandmaster Bai, standing in the same spot as the previous day. This simple gesture, repeated day after day, left a profound impression on Xu Qing, engraving itself into his memory. Half a month passed in this steady routine. Xu Qing devoted himself to gathering all manner of medicinal herbs almost daily. Listening intently to every lecture he could access, his knowledge of herbology grew steadily, and he began to understand the principles behind mixing herbs, creating remedies, and recognizing the subtle balance between medicinal benefits and toxicity. By this time, he had accumulated dozens of bamboo slips filled with notes, each one representing a new layer of understanding. Grandmaster Bai never chastised Xu Qing for listening outside the tent or for his persistent questioning. Instead, he answered every inquiry with patience, guiding Xu Qing with clarity and care. Over time, even the guards and the young disciples inside the tent grew accustomed to the sight of this small, scrappy youth in a leather coat, braving rain and wind to learn. Their initial surprise turned into quiet admiration. Xu Qing's dedication impressed everyone, as he never let weather or exhaustion deter him. On a rare morning when Xu Qing arrived late, the young disciples glanced out repeatedly, expecting him not to show. Yet, despite having faced the perils of the Forbidden Zone, the fatigue of long nights, and the constant search for Heaven Fate flowers and scar-repelling stones, Xu Qing finally appeared, Trudging toward the tent, his arrival dispelled any lingering doubt about his commitment and dedication. During his excursions into the Forbidden Zone, Xu Qing still faced dangers. Mutated beasts lurked in the shadows. And even with his 4th-level mountains and seas art cultivation, he had to rely on keen observation, caution, and swift reflexes to survive. These experiences tempered him, sharpening both his body and mind. In addition to his studies and adventures, Xu Qing also benefited from the insurance Boneblade had mentioned. Since his previous investment, Boneblade's business flourished, with more travelers seeking protection. Xu Qing carefully engaged only with those he had personally saved, increasing his income while ensuring fairness. Coupled with his herbal harvests, his life slowly improved, and he began to enjoy a small measure of comfort and security. Captain Lei played a crucial role in this period, providing warmth and stability. He accepted Xu Qing's insistence on paying rent, using the funds to ensure hot meals and even new clothing for the youth. Although Xu Qing hesitated to wear the new clothes, merely seeing them neatly folded and occasionally inspecting them brought him happiness. Mealtimes became moments of quiet connection, with Captain Lei sharing stories of the campsite and daily life, filling Xu Qing's days with a sense of family and belonging. Even when Cross and Luan Tooth returned briefly, Xu Qing's life retained a rhythm of stability and fulfillment. With nourishing meals, new clothes, and Captain Lei's companionship, Xu Qing's cultivation improved steadily. His knowledge of plants and herbs expanded rapidly, and his thirst for learning grew stronger each day. One morning, under the warm glow of the sun, Xu Qing stood outside the tent, listening intently as Grandmaster Bai questioned his students. The first question was directed at Chen Feiyuan, Grandmaster Bai's name for the young man inside. Xu Qing, observing silently, anticipated the struggle the youth would face in answering. The girl, Tingyu, was also called upon, and when she hesitated, Xu Qing could almost see the mortified expression on her face, hidden behind the tent's flaps. Grandmaster Bai's voice carried authority and impatience. "Kid, you answer," he demanded. Xu Qing, feeling his heart race, instinctively spoke up. He recited the properties of the night corpse leading ox, detailing its habitat, taste, medicinal effects, and toxicity. The information flowed from his memory with confidence, covering dosage, poisoning symptoms, methods of detoxification, and the nuanced interactions with other herbs. Grandmaster Bai's rapid-fire questions continued, probing every detail about yin-yang dual-polarity plants, the effects of combining specific herbs, and the creation of medicinal concoctions. Xu Qing responded fluidly, drawing on the lessons he had memorized over the past month. Each answer demonstrated not only recall but comprehension, linking theory to practical applications. The young man and woman inside the tent watched in astonishment as Xu Qing answered with clarity, speed, and precision. Finally, Grandmaster Bai posed a complex problem involving multiple herbs, their ages, and the creation of a medicinal liquid. Xu Qing paused, considering the interactions carefully. After 30 breaths of contemplation, he explained the effects, identifying how the combination strengthened the yang properties while balancing the yin, and even connecting it to the formula for the Great Transformation Pill. His response was measured, precise, and demonstrated an understanding far beyond his apparent years. Satisfied, Grandmaster Bai's voice resonated from inside the tent. "After testing you so much, do you have anything you want to ask?" Xu Qing's mind raced, and he asked a series of carefully thought-out questions regarding the origin, effects, and proper handling of various herbs. Grandmaster Bai answered each one in detail, and Xu Qing absorbed the information eagerly, feeling a sense of mastery over the knowledge he had long sought. The lesson extended far beyond its usual duration, leaving the young man and woman staring at Xu Qing in disbelief and admiration. At last, Xu Qing glanced at the sky, realizing the time had passed. With satisfaction and a renewed thirst for knowledge, he prepared to leave. "From now on, you don't have to stand outside or take those messy medicinal herbs. From tomorrow onwards, you can enter the tent to listen to the lesson." In this episode, we saw Xu Qing face incredible challenges and uncover hidden truths within the Forbidden Zones. From witnessing the golden light in the temple and the divine strike of the saber-wielding stone statue, to his own breakthroughs in the mountains and seas art, Xu Qing's journey has been one of courage, learning, and growth. He explored dangerous jungles, faced mutated beasts, and gathered valuable herbs, all while deepening his understanding under Grandmaster Bai's guidance. Along the way, he formed bonds with Captain Lei and others who helped him, learned the secrets of powerful medicinal herbs, and demonstrated his quick thinking and perseverance. What happens next? Stay tuned for the next episode of Outside of Time. If you enjoyed this episode or found it exciting, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the latest updates on Xu Qing's journey. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next videos.